sports.
Welcome to the Shot Clock, where we're talking sports, entertainment, and lifestyle. I'm your host, Mina SayWhat, and we're 100% digital, 100% live, and 100% real. Let's count them down. Welcome. It's the Shot Clock. I'm your host, Mina SayWhat. What an exciting weekend of basketball. Our Sixers are still number one in the East. We have an amazing show planned for you today. The legendary, the trailblazer, Doris Burke is joining us for Women's History Month. Before we get to that, let's bring in my guy, my brother from another mother, Fox 29 and Zero F's Given podcast, Sean Bell. Welcome, Sean.
What up? What it do? I'm happy to be here,
good.
man. It's about to be a great show.
It really is. Let's get right to it. We got a lot to talk about. Let's hop into the playbook. Big story this week. LeBron James out for 2 to 3 weeks. That's been updated. Originally, they said he was out indefinitely with a high ankle sprain after coming down real hard in the game against the Hawks. Here's what caused it.
One of the key components to the Lakers winning a title. LeBron, down he goes, and he grabs his ankle. LeBron with his right ankle.
That's scary. When a guy comes down that hard and you hear him, really scary. Now, obviously, he doesn't feel good about this. He feels like he let his team down. Here's what he had to say on Twitter. LeBron puts a lot on himself. So he says, nothing angers and saddens me more than not being available to and for my teammates. I'm hurting inside out right now. The road back from recovery starts now. This is our second candidate for MVP that's hurt. What does this do for the MVP talk, Sean?
Means it's going to Joker. It's going to Nikolai Joker, right? It's in the bag at this point. I know they play in Denver and no one's paying attention, but that dude is averaging 27 points, 11 rebounds, and 8 assists. Right? Like, he had a chance to win the MVP even if those guys didn't get hurt. So Joel Embiid was my number one. Okay, LeBron was actually my number 3. But if those guys are going to miss 15 games, if they're going to miss 3 to 4 weeks, then it's going to go to Jokic. And then I go with Dame Dollars after that because no one's paying attention to what Damian Lillard's doing. But yeah, I think if you're going to miss 15 games, you're just going to be out of the MVP conversation, period, no matter what your stats were before.
Really? Because I have a feeling no one was talking about these other people for MVP until Joel and LeBron, went down. And it's funny, we were talking about this. LeBron's numbers haven't even been spectacular compared to some of these other guys this season. So I thought maybe 2 to 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks is very different from, being out for 5 games, 6 games. But I really thought that it would their name would at least still be in the running. That's how much people were behind them. You don't feel the same way?
No, not at all. Because the reason why people weren't talking about Jokic is because, like I said, he's in Denver. No one's really paying attention. Jokic, as you said, LeBron didn't have crazy numbers. Jokic has better numbers. If you were being objective and not going with narratives, Jokic should have been over LeBron anyway. Joel Embiid, to me, was by far the MVP. He had the best numbers, the best PR, the best everything. But again, he's missing a month of basketball. You're not going to get it if you miss 20 games. So, yes, Jokic is going to win this thing if he doesn't get hurt because LeBron and those guys are out far too long.
All right, moving on. Ben Simmons blasted the NCAA this weekend. In addition to the men's tourney, the women started playing as well. There's some very, very distinctive disparities between the facilities for the women and the men. Now, this is the video that went viral that kind of exposed the whole thing.
I got something to show y'all. So for the NCAA March Madness, the biggest tournament in college basketball for women, this is our weight room. Let me show y'all the men's weight room. Now, when pictures of our weight room got released versus the men's, the NCAA came out with a statement saying that it wasn't money, it was space that was a problem. Let me show y'all something else. Here's our practice court, right? And then here's that weight room. And then here's all this extra space. If you aren't upset about this problem, then you're a part of it.
So Coach Staley in South Carolina actually wrote a very lengthy message as well, saying every team here in San Antonio has deserved and earns at a minimum the same level of respect as a men. She even pointed out the header and the bio for the NCAA Twitter, which makes no mention of the women's tournament. It literally just says Division I NCAA men's basketball. Now, Ben Simmons had some things to say about this during post game. I have a lot of respect for Ben for saying this. He said, I don't have any respect for the NCAA at all. What they're doing is wrong. I've seen the women's stuff with the gym, and that's obviously not fair. They have so much money. They can't set up a weight room the same and be equal with that. That's BS. There's no excuse for that. They have too much money not to be able to do that and take care of the women's side. You would think after the year that we had, Sean, where we're literally preaching equality, that the NCAA would treat men and women equally. Are you surprised by this?
I'm not surprised at all. I'm angry, but I'm certainly not surprised. I mean, the disrespect for the women's game in general, and not just in NCAA basketball, but at the WNBA level, because you saw what the WNBA players had in the bubble last year as in comparison to the NBA players. I mean, the disrespect has always been there. And shout out to Natasha Cloud also, that we spoke to a couple of weeks, steadily on the NCAA's neck. And I'm not surprised because it's the NCAA. We know how they treat players. We know how they treat women athletes. We know how they do, and the lack of respect that they always give. Like, at this point, everyone has to stay on their neck. Like, we can't just come out against them when something like this comes out. And shout out to Sedona Prince for putting out that video. But we have to continue to show out everything. Point and show everything that they're doing every time they do it, and keep the pressure on, because the only way they're going to learn is if we're always on their neck PR wise.
You know what? I'm really happy that we have social media. We talk about all the negative things that social media does to our society, right? But this is a positive thing. It really exposes some of the things that are not equal, and it forces people to really react. And I really, really applaud Ben for being so critical, because this is what we need. We need the men to support the women, the women to support the men, and that's how we build each other up with supporting each other. Now, NCAA March Madness is in full effect. Sean, it was straight craziness this weekend. Now, it's a little different this year because of COVID. And so far, it seems like there's only really been one team that has been really badly affected by this. VCU had to forfeit because a number of their players tested positive. But that's really the only thing that we've seen. They've tried to, have the players contained. Dawn Staley talked about last week how, all the precautions that the NCAA is taking when it comes to testing and stuff like that. At this point, how's your bracket, Sean?
Listen, I didn't fill out a bracket on either side, men or women. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I do every year, but I sort of said, you know what? This is going to be a crapshoot type of year because of everything going on, because of COVID. There's teams that have stopped playing 3 separate times, who had breaks a month long because they haven't been able to play. So how are we really supposed to judge? I mean, I had Ohio State going to the Final Four just in my head, and you saw how that ended. They lost to a 15th seed, Oral Roberts, right? So listen, the bracket that I put in my head is in shambles right now on both sides. Although my women's bracket is doing okay, but my men's bracket is. But of course, the women have a lot more games to go because they started later. So we'll see.
I will say, I think it's different for a lot of people. This is kind of like an office ritual, the filling out of the bracket and, like the office pool. And because we don't have that, I feel like it hasn't had that same kind of excitement that we've had in the years past when it comes to, bracket sharing and bracketology and all of that. But we did have some good home games last night. It looks like the Southern and Western regions are locked in. This my alma mater, Syracuse.
Not too. Don't leave me out of that Q's, baby.
You you're like Penn State, Syracuse.
Yeah, man, Q's, baby. We
here. Listen, that Jim Boeheim that 2-3 zone will get you every time.
Yo, Buddy Boeheim getting it done, baby. It pays to be the son of the coach.
Exactly. And Sixers do good when they're like a double-digit seed. Look at them beating out West Virginia. No one saw this happening. 75-72. This Rutgers game was so good. They almost beat Houston. Look at that. It really came down to the wire. And of course, Villanova, our Wildcats, 84 just blew out North Texas 61. I thought at one point we were going to have like a tri-state region, like New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. I was here for it. But Shout out to Rutgers. They did their thing. Shout out to the Syracuse women who also won as well. Now today, the women's Rutgers is playing BYU. They're actually playing right now. And women's Drexel is playing Georgia right now as well. So, and of course, the men's Sweet 16 is jumping off this Saturday, March 27th at 2 p.m. This is what the bracket looks like. It's going to be very exciting, okay? That wraps up the playbook. Let's get into a word from one of our sponsors.
Stop overpaying for wireless. Switch to Boost Mobile and watch your bill drop. Plans starting at $10 a month that match your data needs. Think your phone company can get down like that? Get started for as low as $10 a month. All on America's largest 5G network for less. Boost Mobile.
Welcome back to the Shot Clock. We got 9 minutes on the clock. I'm Mina SayWhat, your host for Women's History Month. We've been honoring one woman every week. We've had the honor of just talking to amazing women today. This woman we're speaking to is a trailblazer. You know her. Her name is Doris Burke. Now, Doris Burke is a Hall of Fame broadcaster and one of the leading national NBA commentators, having covered basketball for 3 decades. In 2020, Burke became the first woman to serve as a game analyst for the NBA Finals when she provided commentary on ESPN radio. Prior to that, the 2017-2018 NBA season, ESPN named Doris Burke a national NBA game analyst, becoming the first woman to serve that full-time ever, okay, in that capacity. During Burke's ESPN tenure, she's served as a top commentator for the NBA, women's and men's college basketball, and the WNBA. Doris has covered basketball for ESPN since 1991. She served as the lead sideline reporter for the NBA Finals on ABC. She was the first female commentator to call a New York Knicks game on the radio and on television for many years, and worked in radio and television for the New York Liberty. She was the first woman to announce a Big East men's basketball game on TV. Okay. Now she's a former basketball standout at Providence College who held 7 records upon graduation. Burke finished her career as a school and conference all-time assist leader. She served as an assistant coach for her alma mater for 2 years, and she began her career in broadcasting in 1990 as an analyst for the women's game for Providence College on radio. Here's a look at Doris Sable getting some buckets.
Tonight, number 11. Manasquan comes up with the rebound. Kelly Gunning getting the outlet pass to Sable. Sable got the bonus. Sable with the steal.
Another turnover off that press. Good pass by
Kelly Gunning with a rebound. Gets it right to Sable. Doris Sable from outside. Gets the roll.
You got to give DB a lot of credit. Hustling back from talking with the coaches. Look at the handle. Steph Curry, take that. DB, welcome back. You've been missed. And that's a dunk. That counts as a dunk.
She's our woman crush every day. Please welcome to the show the legendary Doris Burke. Yay!
Hello, you guys.
Thank you so much.
You're making
Doris,
me feel old with all those videos.
Girl, you was getting buckets. Like, I mean, you were really balling, and that's where your love for basketball really starts, you know, being that girl in New Jersey playing basketball down the Jersey Shore, right?
That's exactly right. I grew up right next door to a park, Mina, Indian Hill Park, when I was my family moved from New York to New Jersey. And yeah, I just never put the ball down. That's how much I like the game. So it's really kind of shaped my life. Think about it. I'm the last of 8 kids. I've got no shot of college education without my basketball scholarship. You know, I'm a believer that nothing changes your life more than education. So yeah, the game has been really good to me.
Doris, you're a living legend and a trailblazer. How does that feel? Like, do you wake up like you're so humble, but you're really a trailblazer. You were the first woman to do a lot. And a lot of women feel like they now can have a career in sports because of the strides that you've made. How does that feel? You're a woman of firsts.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I never considered it in all the time I've been doing it because, as I've said many times, if I considered you're the first one in this space, it would have scared me to absolute death. It really would have. And so the fact of the matter is, like, I've been lucky. I've had people who have been willing to take chances on me, bosses who've been willing to put me in spaces where women had not been prior to that. And I've said this, I don't want to take credit for something I didn't set out to do, right? I know that Jackie McMullen and Robin Roberts and all these women who preceded me in sports broadcasting paid a price that I didn't have to pay. There's this incredible story about Susie Waldman and a really tough experience in a baseball locker room and very nearly quitting the job because of a really tough scene in a locker room. I've never had any of that. I heard Sean talking about this, on your earlier segment about the women's tournament and sort of the disparities. And, I think we have to stay conscious and diligent and just keep the foot on the gas pedal, so to speak, as my colleague Mark Jackson might say. I've been really lucky, and I would say this to you, Mina. If somehow I've made the path for women who are coming behind me slightly easier, when I look back, there will be nothing more important that I've achieved in my life than doing that, because I know that Robin and Jackie did that for me.
Of course, to expound on that a little bit, like, again, we talked about, what was your sort of reaction on seeing that video that Sedona Prince put up? And again, I know we have to sort of stay on point and stay on their neck, but it feels like what can we do? Like, it's almost at a place where it kind of feels like these people just they don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, it shows an incredible lack of thought to me that went into it. It's easy to see the disparity. It is such a striking thing to witness. I was listening to ESPN's lead analyst, Rebecca Lobo, say this is not surprising. It's just that in the era of social media, the opportunity for people who are experiencing this to show it, to put it right in front of your face and to say, look at this, acknowledge it. You think back to one of the pivotal moments in American history as it relates to civil rights. It only occurred because of television, right? The Selma Bridge, just the footage from that day made Americans look at it because of the impact of television. And social media is this generation's way of saying, this is what we're up against. And so, as you said, kudos to Sedona Price for drawing attention to what is clearly unequal treatment and unacceptable treatment. Right.
Doris, when I was growing up, I played basketball. There weren't women doing play-by-play. I just, there were some women doing sideline, but what you're doing, and I know you're just doing your job, but what you're doing really inspires women, because people like me didn't see that. We didn't hear women doing play-by-play when we were growing up. So when you were growing up, who did you look up to? Like, who did you study and try to be like?
Yeah. So number one, I never dreamed of being an announcer. To be honest with you, I had bad hair, bad clothes, bad teeth, and bad skin. And really, all through college, the only thing I cared about was, could I get a jump shot to match my dribble drive ability? Because I could get anywhere I wanted off the bounce, but people wouldn't guard me on the perimeter. So I fell into my career. And it's funny because, one of the decisive moments in my career that changed it for a woman who then was doing some broadcasting, but now was going to be able to do it full time, was the advent of the WNBA. Right. In 1997, for the first time in history, because I could put together a 35-game schedule in the winter and another 35-game schedule in the course of a normal basketball season doing women's college basketball, I could now do the job that Bill Raftery and Dick Vitale were doing back then. And so, but it's interesting, I had basketball heroes. I was seeing one women's game on television nationally per year, and that's the national championship. First, the AIAW championship, and the advent of the NCAA championship, which I believe first year was 1982. So I was like, I wanted to be Mo Cheeks. I wanted to be Kyle Macy. I wanted to be the people I saw on television because I didn't have any women's heroes, right? So, and I knew I couldn't be Dr. J because I didn't have those hot. Mo was like, you know, excellent handle, smart passer, make a great defensive. I was like, I can be him.
I don't think anyone can be Dr. J.
Yeah.
Right. True.
Doris, let me ask you a quick on your analysis on the Sixers. Now, I don't know about everybody else, but my quick feeling is I don't know if anybody can get after the Brooklyn Nets once KD gets in there. What do you see from the Sixers, especially what they're doing now without Joel? And do you think that they're going to be able to compete with the Brooklyn Nets?
Boy, what a win last night. You know, you're grinding it out. Ben returns, you know, possession ball game with the New York Knicks team playing harder, playing smarter. They know who they are and how they win. Listen, I couldn't be more impressed with what Doc Rivers has done in his first year. And it's the little things around the edge. Like, yes, they're going nowhere without Joel and Embiid playing at the MVP level he's playing at. They're going nowhere without Ben's cross-positional defense that, okay, you know, tonight he's KD. The next game he's, you know, name somebody. He could dig it out in a post in a 5-on whatever matchup because he's big and strong. He's 6'10", and they need him a pinch. He could guard the post against a 5. But to me, there are subtle things happening around him, like the Furkan Korkmaz move. The ability to say, all right, this guy needs the ball in his hands. We're going to need him in particular matchups. All the depth and the shots that are going to come to people around Joel. Those are important moves. Getting Tobias back is significant. So I'm impressed. I was asked last week on a podcast, though, guys, who I'd pick. And I can't believe I picked against the Lakers. But I just think the Brooklyn Nets say, you got to guard those 3 guys. And you got to beat them 4 times. I'm not like, who's doing that? Because you saw last night, there was a stretch where James had 2 or 3 possessions where he was not good. And they're in a possession ball game. And then Kyrie took over. Kyrie makes 2 plays where he gets the ball to Nicholas Claxton. And boom, they're up and they win another basketball game. Like, I got to be honest with you. If you're asking me who I'm picking right now, I'd tell you it's the Brooklyn Nets.
Wow, Doris.
I agree.
Doris.
I mean, I've been wrong. Yeah.
What do the Sixers need? What do we need right now? Because obviously we've had a tough week. You know, Seth Curry is out. You know, Joel is out. Ben didn't play for 1 game. What do we need in order to even compete against them? What do you see?
Boy, this is a great question because, and I said on the last Sixer telecast I had, which is I feel like they go to a different level when Seth Curry is making, you know, stringing together a game where there's 5 or 6 threes going down. Because the fact of the matter is this, right? Like Matisse Thybulle, at times the ball found late clock. That's the guy they're going to concede shots to. And I love what he does defensively. And so there's nights where you're going to need maybe Thybulle in a closing lineup, maybe not. I don't know, depending on matchups and how teams are playing. Are they, you know, are they downsizing? But to me, like, I'm always in the market for more shooting in the modern NBA. And I don't necessarily just mean 3-point shooting. Because think about how many times in an NBA playoff game that ability to line them down, the mid-range jump shot. I'm thinking specifically of 2 years ago when Portland beats Denver and CJ McCollum made free throw line jumper after free throw line jumper after free throw line jumper, and it helps them advance. And that to me is, think about Golden's efficient 3-point shooting, an efficient mid-range game with 3 of the best to ever do it. KD, Clay, all 3 incredibly efficient mid-range shooters. So I don't know. I guess I'm always biased. Like, I look at the New York Knicks last night, like, they need like 3 more shooters. Forget about 1 shooter. They need 3 more shooters. But listen, if you're asking me, you know, if it's a Brooklyn, Philadelphia East final or, you know, Brooklyn, Milwaukee East final. Like I think Milwaukee's better. I genuinely think Milwaukee's better and more dangerous. And the one common refrain I heard over the last 2 years from Eastern Conference players, coaches, scouts alike was nobody was afraid of Milwaukee. My job's a little different this year, right? Because even when we're in the building, I'm not on the floor. So I'm not having those 2, 3, 4 minute conversations with people, actually getting a feel for what people are thinking. But to me, Milwaukee feels a little more dangerous this year than they did a year ago.
Okay. It's a little shocking. Okay. Oh, and
we're like stunned, like Milwaukee. Giannis.
I like
MVP. It, Do you? Because it's funny. Well, even we were talking about MVP, we just skipped over Giannis, but he's definitely like in the conversation now that you say the Bucks.
Oh, listen, I like Sean. I heard you say that Joker would be your MVP ended today. That's what you said earlier. And I got to be honest with you. I think if I were put on the spot, I might say the same thing. But I said it again. I had Milwaukee last week. And we cannot, like, don't talk to me about voter fatigue where the MVP race is concerned, because we put up a graphic and compared Giannis's last 2 years where he was MVP by a landslide and what he's doing this year. And those numbers are remarkably similar. And there's a ton yet to be played out in those top three. Those top three in the East have clearly distinguished themselves as at a level above everybody else. Like to me, the Eastern Conference champion obviously is one of those three teams. There's still so much basketball to be played. You know, what injuries happen. Look at what happened with LeBron James, or whatever, put them in the standings when all is said and done. But MVP this will be as compelling. I'll be curious how many first place votes the MVP gets. We may see a year where the second and third, who you vote second and third, may have an impact of tipping the scale one way or the other to the ultimate winner. But I could comfortably make a case for Joel Embiid, for Jokic, and for Giannis, and LeBron for sure. But it's those other three guys. I might have them just slightly higher than LeBron.
I'm a Joel Embiid kind of girl.
One more overtime question real quick, because it's not every time we get Doris Burke.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you give me your quick Mount Rushmore of women's basketball players, and who was your favorite, I guess, growing up, or just your favorite all time?
My favorite.
That's a great question.
My favorite all-time player is Diana Taurasi. You know, she's the greatest winner I've ever seen. I called her 3 national championships in college. The flair with which she played, the confidence, the swagger. Here's what's unusual, or what was unusual about Diana, because I do think things are changing for women. Diana never had a problem. Am I allowed to curse on this podcast or no?
You're Doris Burke. You can do whatever you want.
Yes, you are.
Like, I mean this as the highest compliment I can give. Like, Diana was an absolute bitch to play against, because she raised the level of people around her. And I'm going to tell you this story about her. She's a freshman at UConn, and they're playing in Knoxville. And Diana hits a 3 from the sideline in front of Tennessee's bench. Now, we're in Thompson Bowling Arena. There's 17,000 people draped in orange booing her. She hits a monster 3 and turns around, looks at the Tennessee bench, and sort of over the top of it to the 17,000 people. And she says, "This is my effing house." And she runs back down the other end of the floor. Like, she's my all-time. She would be at the absolute pinnacle of my Mount Rushmore. I loved watching Laura Jackson play. You know, watching what Dawn Staley has done at South Carolina, and Asia Wilson, pivotal player to the turnaround in, you know, arguably one of the toughest conferences in women's basketball. And as you know, as Asia said, you know, my grandmother wasn't allowed to play here, and her granddaughter's statue, or wasn't allowed to come here, and her granddaughter's statue is standing outside the building. Like,
wow.
Give a big amen to that. I feel like we're on we're hopefully at a moment of great. I hope when we look back, society, this was a moment, this was an inflection point, and we further ourselves as a society. But those, I mean, watching Breanna Stewart win 4 consecutive national titles, doing something that nobody has ever done. When I was the youngest when I remember watching a women's basketball player, was watching the great Old Dominion teams, Nancy Lieberman. And she was dynamic. She was unlike anyone I had ever seen. And then I remember a contemporary of mine, college basketball, where Cheryl Miller was playing at USC when I was a player at Providence. And I said, well, we both play Division I basketball, but Cheryl Miller plays a different game of basketball than I play. That's like, she was absurdly good. So Mount Rushmore, I'm leaving off a million people who I had the good fortune to either play against, to coach against, or then to broadcast their games. Like Maya Moore, like one of the most physically gifted people I've ever seen. I mean, just a million. I was on the game where Candace Parker dunked for the first time. And it's funny, leading up to the game, they were playing Army. And I said, I think it was on a SportsCenter hit or maybe in the open of that show, I said, it would not surprise me Candace Parker dunked today. Boom, she threw it down. And how great is it, Sean and Mina? Like, and this is where I'm hopeful, right? So, Candace joins TNT, I don't know how many years ago now. But like, to watch Candace sit up there on that set and just dialogue with, Shaq and Charles and Dwayne, and just to see it suit her so naturally, it gives me joy. I'm telling you, this next generation of women, they know that they belong. They're going to do what Sedona Price did and call us out if we're wrong. And just gives me joy, gives me great joy.
Thank you so much, Doris, for joining us and for your time. I have 1,000 more questions. We're going to have to do this again. I just want to, and say thank you for even accepting this. I mean, it's funny when people go on the court, when we were allowed on the court, they would go and try to take pictures with the basketball players or say, look, I'm on the court. Look, Joel Embiid is right there. I would run over to Doris and harass Doris. And it was like, I've harassed her so many times that she knows who I am now. Because I was so like, wow, that's Doris Burke. So you're really an inspiration, and thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you for having me. I'm a Pennsylvanian now, so it's great to be part of this. Sincerely,
you're
thank
a Philly
you so
girl.
Much.
Thank you.
You're a Philly girl now.
We're all still Jersey, but Philly for now.
Hey, listen, I'm a Jersey Shore raised kid, so either way, thank you so much for having both of you in all sincerity. Take it easy.
Thank you so much. Doris Burke here on the Shot Clock. I'm Mina SayWhat. Let's get to a word from one of our sponsors.
We've seen how far this game can go, so we take it and run.
Making moves like nobody.
For everybody.
We don't move within the lines.
We move beyond them. Hennessy, the spirit of the NBA.
Welcome back to the Shot Clock. Mina SayWhat, Sean Bell. Why was I so nervous, Sean? I don't even get nervous for interviews, but I was like, Doris Burke.
Hey, that's Doris. It's Doris.
And I was nervous. It was so weird.
And that's why we in triple overtime right now.
Right. I forgot about the time. I was like, wow, Doris.
That's right. Overtime.
We didn't even talk about Nick Foles. We were like, throw Nick Foles up out of here. I mean, thank you so much to Doris Burke for joining us and anyone else watching on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and Facebook. Real quickly, let's get into our schedule for this week. This is going to be another tough week without Joel. And here's another thing. It's going to be another long week because I hate these late games. I always fall asleep these West Coast games. We're taking on the Warriors. That's a good squad. The Lakers without LeBron, the Clippers is going to be a good game. What are you seeing from this, Sean?
The Lakers without LeBron and AD. I think the Warriors, again, they've been playing so well, but I expect them to go 1-2 through this stretch. You know what I mean? Because they're going to hammer bad teams, but these are all playoff teams, really good teams. I think they'll win against the Lakers, but I think they'll be tough against the Warriors and Clippers.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough week for us. Definitely. We'll see if we're still number one in the East after this. And I think we're going to really see what this team is made of. We got a glimpse of that this past week. But yeah, I mean, at one point we had 3 of our guys down and we still came out with the win against the Kings. But again, that's the Kings. You know, we have to see what that looks like when we're going up against more formidable teams and to see really what the bench is going to do and who's going to step up. You know, I think I've been really proud of Danny for stepping up because I was ready to trade Danny like 3-4 weeks ago. I was like, get rid of Danny, send him back to the Lakers. I was ready, but he's really been stepping it up. So we'll see how that goes. Okay. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to Doris for joining us. Thank you, Sean, for your time. Thank you to our producer, Amir, our social media guy, Wiso. Thank you, Wiso. He's no longer with us. He's moved on to another opportunity, but we thank him so much. And he's definitely ShotClock family. Okay, we'll talk to you next week as we wrap up our Women's History Month honorees with one last Philly girl. And not an honorary one, a real one. Okay, we'll talk to you next Monday, 12 o'clock here on the ShotClock. I'm Mina SayWhat. Thanks for watching the Shot Clock. I'm your host, Mina SayWhat, and you got something you want to talk about next week? You can always hit me up on social media at Mina SayWhat, and make sure you join us 12 o'clock next Monday on R&B Philly's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. We'll see you then.